Chapter 35. The Unwanted Guest. "What are you doing in here, Tom?" Powick's muffled voice snarled through the stone wall. "I thought you were going to the town hall tonight, to be ready for the morning. And who is this with you?" Violet was frozen to the spot as she watched the nurse on screen. Boy said, looking across at his friend. Edward asked me to come and fix Hugo. He hasn't been seeing straight lately. His eyes are a little fuzzy." "Fuzzy?" Powick said, marching past the boys right up to the child snatcher, so Violet could only see the side of the nurse's face. "There's nothing wrong with his eyes, unless it's those faulty eye plants again. The eyes, brown, developed, are just not good enough for the job at all. Anyway, it's strange timing for Edward to be sending you here now, on the cusp of his big day. Who is this with you?" Powick turned around, so Violet could only see her back on Dennis's screen now. She was facing Boy and Jack. "Answer me, Tom." He's Jack. He's good with technical stuff, like this. Edward said he didn't have time to fix Hugo because of the trial tomorrow, so he told me to bring Jack for help. That man is self-obsessed. What is it he wants to achieve tomorrow? Revenge on his brother? Petty in the scheme of things. Let him have his fun, I say. He'll see the bigger picture soon enough, though, won't he, Tom?" She laughed. Boy laughed too. It was obvious to Violet that he felt awkward, and she was sure Powick would notice. The nurse would never fall for Boy's story. "So are you finished here, then?" she asked. Yes, I think he is." Boy looked over to Jack. Jack shrugged and half smiled. "Bit funny Edward not asking me to look at Hugo's eyes, isn't it? Since Hugo and the others are my creations, don't you think?" Boy shifted uneasily. "So how did you fix Hugo's eyes then, lad?" Nurse Powick asked as she walked over to Jack, leaning right in. She was facing Dennis again, and Violet could see her wild eyes. Violet tensed. She had to do something. Powick couldn't find out everything, or their plans would be ruined. The nurse was millimetres from Jack's face, staring into his eyes. I rewired them," Jack stuttered. "Oh, really?" She laughed again. "And how is it Mr. Edward Archer asked a boy like you to do that? You're an orphan, aren't you, son? You've the smell of a lost sheep." Out of the far corner of the screen, Violet could see Hugo. She remembered noticing a red button just below his battery pack with the word "Release" on it. It had to be the button to free the monster from his harness. She had an idea. She turned off Dennis and quietly snuck into the stable next door. Powick had her back to her and was still intimidating Jack. She signalled silently at Boy, pointing to herself and then Hugo. Boy nodded as though he understood. Her heart thumped loudly. She tiptoed behind Powick, round the edge of the table to Hugo, and pushed her hand onto the red release button. The monster's harness clanked loudly as it flew upwards over his head, freeing Hugo from his restraints. "Call him!" Violet shouted, as the child snatcher stepped away from the wall. "Hugo, attack!" Boy roared, pointing at Powick. The nurse stood back and laughed as Hugo lumbered towards her. "He's my creation. Hugo won't attack me. Would you, Hugo?" "Hugo?" The child snatcher groaned and lifted his hands up as he trudged towards Powick. The nurse's face changed. She turned and started to run frantically towards the door, just as Jack tackled her to the ground. Within moments, Hugo was upon his creator. He grabbed the woman by the collar of her navy cloak, hoisting her into the air. "I'm your mother, your creator. Please, Hugo, please," the woman spluttered. "You might have made him, but Tom's his friend," Violet said, relieved as Powick was caught firmly in the child snatcher's grasp. "Maybe you should treat your creations better next time." "What do we do now?" Jack asked. "Bring her back here," a raspy voice echoed through the stable. Everyone scanned the room, unsure where the voice had come from. "It's me, Macula. The walkie-talkie is in your hand, boy. You'll be happy to know Hugo's transmitter is working. Bring Powick back here. Over." "Boy," Powick laughed, "how did you get out of the caravan, you miserable swine? Did your friends come and save you?" Rather sweet, if a little silly. You'll see soon. But what if someone notices she's missing? Over, Boy asked his mam, ignoring Powick. And believe me, they will notice, the nurse growled. They won't, Macula insisted. Nobody will be looking for that woman tonight. The Archers are too busy preparing for tomorrow, as I'm sure Tom is too. Just come straight back and bring her with you. I'll meet you at Iris's. Over. OK, Boy said, slipping the walkie-talkie into his pocket. Let's go back to town. We can figure out what to do then. Boy ordered Hugo to carry the nurse. The child snatcher threw Powick over his shoulder as they left the zombie's stable and made their way across the ploughed field towards the well shaft. So, you're Tom's brother, Powick said, as she hung halfway down Hugo's back. Are you really going to listen to that fool of a mother? She left you in the orphanage all that time. I felt so bad for Tom. I simply had to take him under my wing. I would have taken you too, but I could only afford to feed one mouth. Is that because you were already feeding all those toys in your house? Plastic food must be expensive, Jack mocked. Toys? How dare you? Powick spat, irate. Those are my babies. The babies you orphans destroyed. Children should be locked up, not seen and not heard. That's my motto. At least we're real, Jack replied angrily. Real? Powick laughed. How does a child with no parents even exist? You're all the discarded, unwanted ones. Your families may have pretended they wanted you back, but look at your pathetic little town now, falling apart at the seams. The perfectionists don't want no man's landers. They never did. Boy, can you get Hugo to shut her up? Jack snapped. Boy ordered Hugo to stop Powick speaking. Slowly, the child snatcher made a fist and thumped her, knocking her out. I'm beginning to like Hugo, Violet said, smiling, as she climbed onto the well platform. She waited for the others to come aboard, then pressed D-O-W-N, and the stone floor returned to the tunnel.